Welcome to today's lesson. Today's lesson is on rounding off numbers to the nearest tenth and hundredth. Now, the numbers we'll be considering today will be decimal numbers. So let's get started. We're going to round numbers to the nearest tenth and the nearest hundredth. Now, it is the same principle that is guiding us. Now, let's revise those principles again. If the number is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, run down. But if the number is 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, you round up. So let's do this. These are decimal numbers. This is to the nearest tenth, nearest tenth, and this is to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to do this, and let's have it this way. So this is number 1. If I have this number 7.0384, and the question says round to the nearest tenth. Now, we must understand the place value system of decimal numbers. This is the decimal point. The digits before the decimal point are your whole numbers. The digits after the decimal point are your fractions. So if I'm to read this number, it is 7.0384. So you notice I'm calling the individual figures and the numbers after the decimal point. Now, these 4-digit numbers I have here has its place value. The digit immediately after the decimal point is the tenth. If I'm to write that, I'll spell this way: TENTH. That's the tenth. The digit after the tenth is the hundredth. Then the digit here, it's thousandth. So you see, I'm adding the TH to it. And of course, this becomes your 10,000. You add TH to it. So the question says, round this number to the nearest tenth. What will be the answer to this question? Now, since this is my tenth, I'm going to write just this digit after the decimal point. But remember the rule, whether to round up or to round down. If I'm going to round up, that determines the value of the digits I have after the tenth. And since the digit after the tenth is 3, it means I'm going to round down. That simply means my answer becomes 7.0. This is to the nearest tenth. What about to the nearest hundredth? Now, my focus will be on the digit under the hundredth. Now, this digit, before I'm going to write it, I'll check the digit after the hundredth, and that's 8. And we said if it is 8, you round up by adding 1 to the digit under the hundred. So my answer becomes 7.04. That is to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so let's go to number 2. I guess this will guide us in the other work we're going to do now. 18.0. 502. To the nearest tenth, 18.5. To the nearest hundredth, this is my hundredth. Now this zero is significant because it's in between two significant figures. So here, before I write the zero, I check this digits. It is not up to 5, so I run down. So my answer becomes 18.50. Let's go to number 3. I have 40.65. Now to the nearest tenth, this is my tenth. And the digit after the tenth is 5, so I run up by adding 1 to the 6. So it becomes 40.7. What about to the nearest hundredth? Well, it's going to be 40.65 because that is exactly the figure you have there. This is your tenth, your hundredth, so it's going to be the same. It won't change. Now let's try number 4. I have 35.4321. To the nearest tenth, this is my tenth. I check the digit after the tenth, it's 3, so I'm going to run down. So my answer becomes 35.4. To the nearest hundredth, this is tenth, hundredth. So this is my focus. I'll check the digit after the hundredth, it is 2, I'm rounding down. So my answer becomes 35.43. Number 5. If I have 72.473 to the nearest tenth, this is my tenth. I'll check the digits after the tenth. It is 7, which means I'm going to round up by adding 1 to the tenth. So my answer becomes 72.5. To the nearest hundredth, this is my hundredth. Tenth, hundredth. Now check the digits after the hundredth. It's 3, which means I'm rounding down. So my answer will become 72.47. Let's try out number 6. 7.1863. To the nearest tenth, this is my tenth. I'll check the digits after the tenth is 8, so I'm going to round up by adding 1 to the tenth, and that becomes 7.2. To the nearest hundredth, this is my hundredth, the 8th. I'll check the digits after the hundredth, it's 6, so I'm going to round up by adding 1 to the 8th, and so it becomes 7.19. Now let's move to number 7. I have 5.794 to the nearest tenth. This is my tenth. Now the digit after the tenth is 9, so I'm going to round up by adding 1 to the tenth, and that becomes 5.8. To the nearest hundredth, now this becomes my hundredth. I'll check the digit after the hundredth, it's 4, so I'm going to round down, and my answer is simply 5.79. Number 8. I have 4.927. I'm going to run this number to the nearest tenth. This is my tenth. The digit after the tenth is 2, so I'm going to run down. My answer becomes 4.9. Now to the nearest hundredth, this is my hundredth. The digit after the hundredth is 7, so I'm going to run up by adding 1 to the digit under the hundredth, and my answer becomes 4.93. So we could see that a running of numbers to the nearest tenth and hundred is not difficult. Now let's look at decimal numbers where we are asked to round it to the nearest whole number, to two significant figures, and to three significant figures. How do we go about solving this? Remember, the guiding principle still affects what we're about to do. We're still going to use almost the same set of numbers we used when we're rounding up numbers to the nearest tenth and the nearest hundredth. And let's start with the first one. Let's assume I have 7.033. 384. Now run this number to the nearest tenth. Sorry, nearest whole number. I'm running this number to the nearest whole number. Recall I said that the digit before the decimal point is the whole number, while the digits after the decimal point are the fractions. So what the question is asking you to do when it asks you to round off numbers to the nearest whole number is that do away with the decimal point and the fractions and keep only the digits before the decimal point because those are the whole numbers. So in this case, the whole number here is 7. But before I will write 7 and throw away the decimal point and the fractions, I will have to check the digits after the whole number, and that's 0. So which means I'm going to round down. So that the nearest whole number, my answer is 7. But what about significant figures? Here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 digits. They are all significant. Even the 0, because the 0 is in between two significant figures. So the question now is, how many significant figures do I have here? I actually have 5 significant figures. So when the question says write to two significant figures, it means just keep to the first 2 digits and do away with the others. So in this case, I'm going to have 7.0. Now why 0? Because this digit after the 0 is 3, which means you will round down. If I so desire, I can convert these 3, 8, and 4 to 0, 0, 0. But now there is no point doing that because of the decimal point. Now remember, when we're rounding off numbers to the nearest, rounding off whole numbers to two significant figures, we convert those other digits to 0, 0, 0. But because this is a decimal number, there's no point converting to 0, 0, 0 because it means nothing as long as this decimal point is there. But if the decimal point was not there, we would have converted the digits to 0, 0, 0. I hope you catch that. Now let's go to 3 significant figures. This is the first 3 figures and they are significant. So those are the 3 figures I'm going to write. But before I write it, I'll check the digits after the 3 significant figure. And that's 8. So it means I am rounding up by adding 1 to 3. So my answer becomes 7.04. Again, I can decide to change or convert the 8 and the 4 to 0, 0. But again, it means nothing because of the decimal point. So if you choose to convert it to 0, 0, that's okay, you're correct. If you decide not to include it, it's okay because the 0, 0 here are insignificant. They are not important. So let's move on to number 2. I get, with what I've just said now, doing the orders will be so easy for us. 18.502. Now let's first of all run to the nearest whole number. The whole numbers I have here is 18. They are the digits before the decimal point. But just before I write that, I had to check the digits after the decimal point. It's 5. What does that tell you? It means I'm going to round up by adding 1 to 8. And my answer is 19. Now, what about the 2 significant figure? Again, the first 2 digits are the 2 significant figures. Just before I write it, I had to check the digits after the significant figures. And that's 5, which means I can round up by adding 1 to 8. And if I do that, my answer becomes 19. So you can see that the answer you got when you round to the nearest whole number is the same answer you're getting when you round to 2 significant figures. It can happen. So don't feel that maybe what you've just done is incorrect. No, this is perfect. It's correct. Now let's move on to 3 significant figures. Remember, I have 5 significant figures here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 0 is significant because of it's in between 2 significant figures. Now to 3 significant figures, it is 18.5 are the 3 significant figures I'm going to write. But before you write it, you have to check the digits after the 5. Is it what you can use to round up or round down. Because it is 0, we are rounding down. So my answer is 18.5. Now let's move to number 3, 40.65. Again, to the nearest whole number. The whole number here is 40. But check the digits after 40. That's 6. So it tells you I'm rounding up. And my answer is 41. To two significant figures, the two significant figures, it's 40 also, because the 0 is in between two significant figures. So I'm going to write 40, but just before I write 40, I check the digit after 40. It's 6. It means I can round up. So my answer is the 41. Now let's go to three significant figures. The three significant figures are 40.6. But before I write the 40.6, I had to check the digit after the 6. It's 5, which means I can round up by adding 1 to 6. And so my answer becomes 40.7. So you can see it's simple as ABC. Now let's go to the next one. 35.4321. Again, to the nearest whole number, my whole number is 35. Now the digits here, it's 4. So I will run down. So I have 35. I go to two significant figures. Again, the first two digits are the two significant figures. So before I write 35, I check the digits after 35. It's 4. I'm rounding down. So my answer remains 35. So three significant figures, the three significant figures are 35.4. Before I write 35.4, I'll check the digits after 4. It means you're rounding down because it's 3. So my answer is 35.4. Now let's go to number 5. Number 5, I have 72.473. To the nearest whole number, 72. You know why? And then to the two significant figure, it is also 72. You know why? And then what about the three significant figure? It is 72 point what? If you say 5, you are correct. Because the digits after the 4 is 7, which means you can round up by adding 1 to 4. Now let's try at number 6. Here I have 7.1863. To the nearest whole number, 7. You know why it is 7? Because 1 cannot be used to round up, but rather to round down. What about two significant figures? The two significant figures are 7.1. But now before you write 7.1, you check the digits after 1. It's 8. So that means you can round up. So it becomes 7.2. What about the three significant figures? They are 7.18. But just before you write 7.18, you check the digits after 8. It's 6. That means you can round up. So your answer becomes 7.19. Okay, let's try another one. 5.794. To the nearest whole number, 6. Why 6? The reason why is because this is the whole number 5. And 7 is a digit you can use to round up by adding 1 to 5 to become 6. To two significant figures, it is 5.7. But before you write 5.7, you check the digit after 7. You notice it is 9, which means you can round up. So it is 5.8. So three significant figures, 5.79. But before you write the 5.79, you check the digit after 9. It is 4. So which means you're rounding down. And your answer becomes 5.79. Let's try at number 8. You have 4.927. To the nearest whole number, 5. You are correct if you say so. Because this is the whole number 4. And the digit here, 9, tells you can round up. Add 1 to 4. 5. To two significant figure, it is 4.9. But before I write the 4.9, I will check the digit after 9, and that's 2. It tells you you're rounding down. So your answer becomes 4.9. So 3 significant figures, 4.92. But before you write the 4.92, you check the digit after 2, it is 7. What does that tell you? You're rounding up. So it becomes 4.93. Now let's look at number 9. It's quite a little bit different from what we've been doing because it is 0.06752. What is the answer to the nearest whole number? The whole number here is 0. So 0 is the whole number. But before I write 0, I check the digit after 0, and it is also 0. So I'm rounding down. So my answer is 0. What about the two significant figures? Well, at this point, how many significant figures do we have in this number? Actually, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 digits. Now remember, I said 6 digits. But how many significant figures do you have in this digit of numbers? It is 1, 2, 3, 4. So you start counting from 6. So at this point, this 0 and this 0, they are insignificant. Why? Why are they not important? Because they are standing alone. It's not as if they are in between two significant figures. If they are, then we would have counted them. But because they are not in between two significant figures, they are insignificant. So we just have 4 significant figures. So to 2 significant figures, it will be 0.067 because the 6 and the 7 are the 2 significant figures. But before I write 0.067, I have to check the digit after 7. It's 5. What does that tell you? Rounding up. So this becomes 0.068. I hope it makes some sense. Now let's go to 3 significant figures. The 3 significant figures, they are 0.0675. But before we write it 0.0675, I'll check the digits after 5. The digit after 5 is 2. I'm rounding down. So it becomes 0.0675. Now let's look at the last example. 0.0003875. Now to the nearest whole number, it's 0. There's no disputing that fact. But how many significant figures do we have in this number? It is 4, 3, 8, 7, and 5. These other zeros are insignificant because they are not in between two significant figures. So to the nearest two significant figure, it will be 0.00038. Just before you write that, you check the digit after 8. It is 7, so you're rounding up. And this becomes 0.00039. What about the 3 significant figures? The 3 significant figures are 0.000387. Now, before you write this, you check the digit after 7. It's 5. It tells you you're rounding up. So it becomes 0.000388. That is the solution to the question. It is time to test your IQ. You round the following numbers to the nearest: A tenth, B hundredth, C whole numbers, D 2 significant figures, and E 3 significant figures. So you have 5 questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each of them will give you 5 answers. Number 1, for example, you round it to the nearest tenth, hundredth, whole numbers, 2 significant figures, and then 3 significant figures. Then you move to number 2. And please do this. Put your answer in the comment section, and let's see who'll be the first to get all the work correctly. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed the lesson, share, and please subscribe. If you have a question you want me to treat or to lecture on, you can drop it on the comment section.